Hello, family. It's your girl, Krystal Lacayo, and you're watching The Chat Box. Hello, family. Thank you for tuning in to the third installment of The Chat Box. Today's discussion talked about the issues and problems within the African diaspora, and it was such a beautiful discussion. We had African American, Afro-Latinx, Ghanaian, Caribbean, Haitian, Liberian, Japanese. It was a beautiful discussion today, and I'm so excited to go ahead and get into this topic. Also, there is a questionnaire that went out on our Instagram account so we can have more people contribute to this conversation. So first we'll get into the podcast. So let's get into it. Oh, and by the way, I am African American on my mom's side. On my dad's side, he's from Honduras, and he is Garifuna. That is our family. That's our culture down there. So technically, like first generation on his side, but on my mom's side, she's American. Miss Bree, go ahead, girl.
Hi. So I'm Brianna. People don't know me, but I am like 100% Haitian. Like basically first gen. Basically, my mom was born here, but she's like through and through Haitian. So yeah, I consider myself Haitian American. I also feel like it's the way that I was raised too. It was very like you're Haitian first, American second. So yeah, but I've grown up here, so I'm really, really in tune with the American culture. I'm really in tune with like the mixing of the whole Caribbean and American. And I think it's really interesting because I have a ton of African friends actually. So it's always really interesting to see that because, you know, technically we're the descendants, Caribbeans are the descendants from Africans too. And it's like, we're not the same, you know, although like Americans might like look at us as the same, we're not. And there's actually a lot of differences between all of us. So yeah, but I feel like there's a more universal group within us, if that makes sense. You know, because we're all Black, we all share that same experience, even if we are from different cultures or different countries. So yeah, and I'm a student at BCU. I study clinical lab sciences, and I hope to become a pharmacist. So.
Period. Yes, ma'am. All right, Miss Veronica, can you give us a little background of who you are?
Yeah. So I'm a sophomore in high school. I'm Ghanaian and my mom is Japanese. And I'm involved in several organizations. So I don't know if you've heard of the Sunrise Movement. I work with the Sunrise Movement, XRU Charlotte, for climate change, like advocating and fighting against climate change. I do a lot of other stuff for school as well. I really understand like what it's like feels like to be like, you know, kind of as like as an African in America, but you know, also being Asian as well makes the experience a little more different.
That's true. That's very true. Where do you live at, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh yeah, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, that's how I heard about Gen Zero.
Perfect. Y'all look at this multimedia marketing I'm trying to do.
What school do you go
All right,
to?
Miss, what'd you say?
I just wanted to ask her what school she went to.
Yeah, what school do you go to?
I go to Harding University High School.
Oh, I've been to Harding before. It's pretty cool.
I've heard of it. Are y'all bougie? Is that one of the bougie schools? No? Oh, okay. I didn't know. All right, Farmer, Mr. Farmer. That's your name?
Yeah, that's my name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but my name is Farmer. I'm a sophomore right now at McDaniel College. It's like a small like liberal arts school in Maryland, and both my parents are Liberian, but I was like born and raised over here, so I really feel like I get like a good experience from both sides, I guess, and then also like I'm put in a position where I can see like a lot of the differences in between the two, and you know, and also like a lot of the people like I work with, they're like Jamaican, so I also get some sort of like a Caribbean, like maybe not the full experience, but you know, perspective at least. And then also growing up where I'm from, it's extremely diverse. So like a lot of my friends growing up were, you know, from all different races and stuff. So I feel like that helped me gain like a better perspective on a lot of things. And but yeah, right now I'm actually doing like I actually just started a mentorship program at my school too. It was basically helping like inner city like youth kids in Baltimore, because that's where my school is like close to, and basically just like helping them get like provide like a role model for them, like a positive role model for them, like a college age person to help them like with school and everything, and also get into college and all that. But yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir. And what was the name of the school you say you go to?
It's called McDaniel.
McDaniel. Okay. I'm from the DMV area. I haven't heard of that school, but
What part you from?
I was in Woodbridge.
Oh, okay. I'm from Manassas.
Oh,
Girl,
Yeah. Wait.
I used to live in Dumfries.
You
You live in
Dumfries?
Dumfries?
I used to live in Dumfries. I used to live there.
And not
Wait.
we all from the same place.
That's crazy. I got all my piercings done like in Dumfries. There's a place, Rio's Tattoo Shop. I got it done in Dumfries. Yay.
What school y'all went to?
I was there. Oh Lord, when did I live up there? I was living in Alexandria since I was like 6, and then I moved to Woodbridge in elementary school. So I was in VA, and then I moved down here for middle school.
Okay. Down here, you in South Carolina?
I'm in North Carolina.
North Carolina. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I went to Patty Elementary.
Oh, I did too.
That's crazy.
We supposed to know each other.
Yeah,
I know.
What'd you say?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh no, I was saying y'all probably long lost classmates or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're a year younger.
Me?
He's a sophomore.
I'm a sophomore.
Oh, no, he's a sophomore in college, but Brianna.
I'm a sophomore in college.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're a year older. Okay.
Look, y'all need to look at y'all yearbooks, cause y'all was in the same area.
Where are you
That
going
is
to
so
school?
funny.
It's like a small city called Westminster in Maryland. You
Okay.
know what Frederick is, right? Frederick, Maryland.
Nowhere what?
Frederick, Maryland.
Yes.
It's like probably like 30 minutes from there.
Oh,
But it's like the country part of Maryland. You know what I mean? So
okay.
yeah.
And
Veronica, girl, we're gonna have to take you to DMV with us, okay? You need to really explore. We're gonna show you where our stomping grounds are at. Well, that is so cool. Look, we already all family. That's something that I feel like the Black community has already built inside. No matter where you from in the diaspora, you gonna find family wherever. It don't matter. So I love this. I can't wait to put this song on our podcast. Okay, so to get started, and don't worry, guys, it's already recorded. I meant to tell y'all that, but it's already recording. So we have Afro-Caribbean, Haitian, to be more specific. Jasmine is Ghanaian. Yes, Jasmine is Ghanaian. Okay. Veronica is also Ghanaian, but she's also Japanese, and Farmer is Liberian. And my family is Afro-Latinx and American. So, and Caribbean, I guess we a mix of everything, honestly. So, first question, and anybody can take the floor with this one. Do you feel that there is a divide amongst cultures in the African diaspora? Do you feel that there is a divide against the different cultures that we have? And it could be yes or no, and you can also explain why.
Yeah, no, most definitely. Like, I feel like even with our parents, they're so like, know that you're like your country first and then, Black after, which is like really not how we're supposed to be taught because we are Black before anything. But no, I see it especially with like our cultures and traditions. Like a lot of things that we do are similar, but they're not the same. And then I feel like the other country looks on the other country like, oh, that's weird. Like it's leading to the same point, but it's not the same thing. And so we're like, that's different, But I feel like now with our generation, it's becoming a little less separated. I feel like now we're like really joining, and it's like really doesn't matter, if you're African, Caribbean, or anything like that, because at the end of the day, we're all Black. And I feel like we're all going through basically the same issues in this world. So yeah, I feel like now, if anything, we're just breaking the barriers and the separation.
I agree with that. That's a really good point to look at. I know like with my family, growing up with my dad being an immigrant, it was always, you Black first. That was what he said. But it's also so important to know where you come from. So it's kind of different with me. He always made sure that, you know, you are Black, because that's what everybody else sees. I think also, you know, being in the military, both my parents are military. So I think always having that, you know, you are Black, they don't see you as Black, and y'all know who they is. So having that look, but it's also really important to know your culture, that to know where your background is. And that's a point I want to bring up later. I'm so excited to talk about that. But yes, Bree, I'm so glad you brought that back up. Go ahead, Jasmine.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I agree with Bree. Basically, yeah, I feel like at home, especially like just for like more immigrant men than women, I feel like my mom has a different mindset because she is mostly American, basically. But yeah, it's just that like my dad puts a big emphasis on being African, and he somehow thinks that like when I go out, maybe they're gonna be able to tell that I'm African instead of like Black, but it don't matter. Nobody can tell, nobody cares anyway. And so I think that's something that we're all working on. And I feel like even this past summer, like it's helped people in the older generations realize that, hey, we are all Black at the end of the day. We're all gonna face this same stuff regardless. But there's definitely divides, even like within the continent of Africa itself. Like I just feel like a lot of countries just have this beef with Nigeria. It's like Nigeria is here and every other country is here. Like it's just something about Nigerians that always rub people the wrong way. And I don't really know. I can't really comment on that because I don't want to be anti-Nigeria. I love their music. But yeah, there's that. And then just between like Black Americans and Africans, there's just always been this thing. And I think it's because when Africans first came to America, they realized that like Black Americans were getting treated like the bottom of the barrel. So they thought, hey, maybe if they separate themselves from Black Americans, they can avoid being treated that way, not really realizing that, hey, you look the same as these people. People can't tell like most Americans can't really tell the difference between an African and a Black American, but I guess that didn't click in their heads. So when they created that divide, it just caused a lot of tension between Black Americans and Africans.
Yeah, I really agree. But wait, sorry, the question was like, you talking about the whole African diaspora, or are you talking about different countries in Africa?
Whatever your take on it is. I did ask about the diaspora, but whatever your take is.
Okay, I think like within the continent of Africa, I think there are obviously like a lot of different like cultures and stuff. But I think at the same time, like we're all very similar. We all like connect easily. I think the beef we talk about with Nigeria is heavily surrounded by jollof rice. You know what I mean. But I know we all know that Liberia has the best jollof, but that's besides the point. You know what I mean. But
We're not gonna do that.
But no, that's besides the point. That's besides the point. But it's like no, but not. I definitely feel like there's a huge, definitely like a divide between like African Americans and Africans. I think a lot of that, because I noticed it with my family, is that they're oftentimes they don't 100% comprehend like a lot of the things that African Americans go through. They just look at America as this big, thing of opportunity, and then when they don't recognize things that a lot of like African Americans go through and how these opportunities are not like given to them, like they don't have access to these opportunities, then they oftentimes mistake that as them being not working hard or whatever. But I feel like that all comes from a place of not understanding and not comprehending like 100%. But yeah.
I think my experience was slightly different because, being mixed, when people look at you, they obviously don't see that I'm Asian. So then sometimes I feel like I have to overcompensate for that by telling everyone about being Asian. So that kind of goes the same way for being African in America. My dad sometimes feels the need to tell people oh, I'm Ghanaian, I'm from Ghana. And especially in social media, like today, the prime example, there was this video of a Caucasian teenager. He was wearing waist beads, and there was like, he was getting a lot of hate for that, and in his comment section, like there was like a lot of controversy. And then I had a friend who is Ghanaian. He responded to that, and then his video blew up actually. And there were just people arguing in the comment section, didn't realize that he was actually Ghanaian, and talking about how African Americans have no say, in talking about waist beads. And, you know, that kind of contributes to the divide that we're seeing in the diaspora.
I
Yeah.
think
Also,
the biggest thing with that is like the problem is we see each other as so separate. Like that's what I was saying. Like we're doing the same things to get to the same places, but like we're looking at it as like disrespect. Because like honestly, like waist beads, I know they're meant to like keep your waist intact and stuff like that. And there's other countries that do things like that. Like Haitians, like we do that for like babies. Like we put like basically waist trainers on babies and stuff like that for like the same effect. But like it's viewed as like different or weird if like another country does it, but it's like, you know, the intended effect, you know what I mean? And I feel like if anything, you know, for me personally, from what I know from waist beads, they're not like super like spiritual or religious or anything like that. And they are like, I think meant to be private. And I don't think that they should be taken and just used for anything. But at the same time, we're always trying to like limit people from taking our traditions and cultures and stuff like that, which I mean, I can understand, you know, with Caucasians, because they just don't get it. But like other Black people, like we're always trying to like gatekeep out of that. Like, you know, Africans like look at you weird if anybody else has like waist beads on or you're showing them or something like that. And it's like that's the first problem. Like we're focused on the wrong issues. You know, like we're separated about the wrong things. Like waist beads, like that's not something that needs to be like a huge discussion. But it's like stuff like that that is. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, I agree. I agree to a certain extent. But another thing I wanted to say was also like I feel like a lot of times like growing up, even my African American friends, like, you know, that divide for me at least, I can only speak for myself, but that divide only like existed as much as we let it interfere with our friendship. You know, like we were able to not make that you know, like a determining factor on whether we're friends or not. Like obviously there's some, you know, things that he would do that I necessarily might not would have done, or I would do that he would not have done. But at the same time, it wasn't, you know, even those differences weren't strong enough to say, oh, I don't like you, or nothing like that.
Yes, I love all of this. And this actually leads to the point that I was excited to talk about. And a lot of you guys brought up African Americans, like what it means to be fully African American, to grow up as a person who is of the Black race without any memory of your actual culture, because you were not of American land. This is not where your culture has had time to, you know, grow, really. So I had been doing, you know, like a little bit of research and, you know, just coming up with my own conclusions, because I feel like there's, you know, this misconception of what it really means to be African American. And I just thought of, you know, the infancy of African American culture. Because if you look at every other culture, I mentioned this a little earlier, the African American culture is very in its infancy, like for real. If you think about it, you know, they signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, 65, something like that. And I should know this. I'm in a political science class right now. But yes, and then you also have in 1963, you know, that's only 50 some years ago, where we had the right to vote. And that right to, you know, have civil rights then allowed for African Americans to really, you know, not only have civil rights, but to have personal rights, to be as expressive as they wanted to be, to have their hair out. You know, it was 2019 when our hair was able to, you know, be in its natural state in the professional or in corporate America. You know what I'm saying? Like there were laws banned against just being African American or just having your characteristics. Now, the thing about being African American compared to being Haitian or being Ghanaian or being like from Honduras and from the Garifuna tribe is like you don't have that foundational of culture that is century long, that is generation long. And African American culture has a tendency to have generational trauma rather than generational progress that is, institutionalized. It's really disheartening to like actually look at African American culture for what it is and what it has become and where it's trying to go. It's beautiful to see, there's beauty in the struggle, ugliness in the success, but at the same time, it's really hard to compare African American culture with other cultures, especially in the diaspora, because that foundation of, family foundation, because, Africans during slavery, they didn't want, they didn't want African fathers and African mothers to be in that family unit. They wanted to break up the family unit. You look at drugs in Chicago or in LA, wanted to break up family units there. I mean, don't have that foundational and generational setting that other cultures were able to have because they were in America and because of their skin tone. So today's time, that's why I call it like the infancy of African Americans, because the culture is really in its infancy of what it could be compared to any other culture in the diaspora, based on, not only just foods or, music, because African American culture is, rap life. Y'all know trap. I love me some trap music. But beyond that, what it means to have culture and to have community, the African American community, compared to any other community in the African diaspora, is really just now coming to highlight and to develop itself. So I really like that you guys brought up African Americans compared to your own cultures, because there is a disconnect with it. So I just want to bring that up. I was really happy that y'all brought that up, because it's really interesting to look at. But yeah, you guys have anything to add to that, or any perspectives? Because I would love to hear it.
I actually do. I consider myself an African American because my family comes straight from Ghana, but I was born in America, so I have that Africa foundation, and I'm here and I'm born in America. However, I think white people basically have almost pushed, they wanted to make sure that Black people knew they were separated from them in every single way possible, because if you were to go to Europe or something and look at their demographics, there's no such thing as an African Briton. They're just a Black Briton. And I feel like Black people who live in America, whose whole family is from America, unless they want to be connected with their roots from Africa, I don't really think that they should be forced to consider themselves African American, because you know nothing about Africa, never been there, family's never been there. Like, it's really no connection but blood from a long time ago. Like, when you think about it, blood from hundreds of years ago. So like, I feel like I don't want to speak on Black Americans, but I feel like a lot of them are just American and they're okay with being called Americans. They probably wish they could just be called Americans, because them being African is just kind of almost a stretch.
So with that being said, I was thinking about this. So being African American, should there be a new term for people who are coined African American, Black American, let me say Black Americans, who were denounced of their culture, being from their country, their nationality, who were denounced from their nationality being, maybe Haitian or Ghanaian, Liberian, XYZ, and are now of the Black race with generations living in America. Should there be a new term for their name of who they are? And should they not connect back? Should there not be a revolution to go back to who you were, to reinvest in who you are, who you were meant to be? That's a very interesting question. That's kind of like two questions in one. Like, should people who are of African descent living in America with generations in America, should they have a new name? Y'all answer that one first. That's it.
I think that's a super interesting question, and I've never even thought about it for real. But like, I definitely, I understand where Jasmine is coming from with the whole like it's almost a stretch to consider them African. But I don't feel like it should be a new name. Anything, I really feel like they should consider themselves American because like Black Americans, like July 4th, that is their Independence Day. Like if you want to put it that way. Because they don't have any connection to like any other Independence Day or like Memorial Day and stuff like that. Like that is a celebration of them too, because like soldiers, Black soldiers who are in wars, Americans, Black soldiers who went to wars, they celebrate that because they're like, I'm fighting for my country. So if anything, like I really think they should consider themselves American, because they literally cannot connect with any other primarily Black culture, because it's not their culture. And like, even if, they could try to trace it back, and if they want to trace it back, I feel like they could do that. Then they could be like, oh, now I understand this culture. Like now I'm like, this is my Independence Day because this is where I'm from. But if you can't do that, then, you got to consider wherever home is, like your home. And it's crazy to think like that because you don't want to say that. But even me, like I'm Haitian and like, I'm like first/second generation American, but even me, I can see little things dying with the culture. So it's like them, it's like years and generations worth of stuff. So if anything, they really don't have anything to connect to outside of the U.S.
Yeah, I really agree to that point. And what you just said about how like you can already see, your culture almost not disintegrating but getting less. Like I see that same thing with myself too, like in my family, because we're also like descendants. But to answer the question, to be honest, like I think like I don't think there really is a deep or strong connect with African Americans to the continent of Africa, maybe the cultures of Africa. So I'd much rather prefer to see something like just Americans, just be known as Americans, because white people, they have the same amount of connection with Europe as African Americans do with Africa, in a sense. But we don't ever refer to them as European Americans because at the end of the day, we just refer to them as Americans. So I feel like we should be recognized almost in the same light.
I think that's actually a really good point, because the comparison I was thinking about was Asian Americans. Most of them are just, people who are immigrants. Their parents are immigrants and they grew up in America. They're considered Asian Americans, but that's not like the same case for Black people in America or white people in America. So I think that's a really good comparison. But as for, giving them like a new name, a new classification, that's kind of like, oh, there's not really a clear distinction between like all the different types of Black people. So if they choose to like retrace their descent, I know there are like websites, like 23andMe, there are like ones meant for Black Americans. They can trace it, but I don't know if they personally feel connected to that culture at the same time.
I love this. Oh my gosh. This is amazing. When I go to school, this is exactly, I want to study our community, specifically African American communities, or what is coined Black American communities. And whenever we're talking about the Black American community, and like I said, it's in its infancy. So then how do you cultivate an infant to become, a better person? You got to raise it. You gotta, put in the right mindset for that person to grow into, the best person that they could be. That's what our parents do, right? That's the same thing you have to pour into African American culture at this point in time. It is so critical at this point in time to pour into African American culture. So, just giving a name, like a certain name for how to distinguish yourself from anybody else. That's why I brought up, should there be a different name for those who are Black and American, have generations in America? But that's really, I totally forget who said that Europeans they're not like European Americans. Farmer, I think you said that. Yeah, that's very true. They're just American. In America, you have Asian American, or you have Filipinx American. You know, they have different, you know, backgrounds. But when you're African American, you cannot distinctly say, "Oh, I'm Nigerian American" or "I'm Haitian American." You know, you can't say that. And so, because you are African American, how do you cultivate that, or how do you, you know, raise that culture to be the best thing? So I really like y'all's perspective on that, saying that they should just be classified as American. That's really interesting. Oh, go ahead, Bree.
But I think that's the biggest issue, though. Like, I feel like the problem is, like you said, like this is the perfect time to pour into the African American community, but because we're so divided, like amongst Black people, like we like refuse to, because we don't even want to associate like with that. If that makes sense, like how we were saying, like African and Caribbean stuff like that, there's like a divide. And like when Africans, Caribbeans, they come to the United States, they're still like, oh, I'm very much Caribbean, I'm very much African. And they're like, I don't want to like relate, or I don't want to get Black people like part of our culture, because like that's not their culture. So like that's the problem. Like I feel like we're looking for, people should be pouring into it, and we're actually like gatekeeping from ourselves. And so then we're like, oh, Black people are ignorant. They're taking like African culture, they're taking Caribbean culture. But in all honesty, you know, we should be pouring into that, like you said. Like they're trying to develop their own culture. So it only makes sense that they take, you know, bits and pieces. But as of right now, it's just seen as like, oh, they're just trying to take our culture, and then we should stop them. And that's working against us like crazy.
I think I like using comparison. Oh, sorry.
You got it.
Okay. I think I like using comparisons because when you look at, I'm bringing up white Americans again, but you don't, like, you see parts of like American culture from like European cultures, like it's not all from one place, it's all over the place, probably because they don't really connect to like one singular culture in Europe. So like, why are we gatekeeping Black culture, African culture, Caribbean culture?
No, I agree, and I like the point. I like what you said, Brianna, because it adds a different like dimension to the question. But at the same time, I feel like the main issue with the differences in between cultures and why it's so separated is due to, I think it's due to ignorance and lack of empathy, rather than, you know, necessarily the name that is attached to the classification of somebody. You know, because like I said earlier, like me and my friends, like we never let that get to a point where it was destructive. Like we never let our ignorance out to a point where it was destructive, where we wouldn't stop hanging out with each other. So I feel like that's the main issue as to why there's such a divide, rather than, you know, classification.
So I love what you all said about, you know, like gatekeeping and, you know, all of that, all of what Bree, Farmer, Veronica, what y'all said is amazing. And that brings me to my next point. Agree to disagree on culture and traditions. Like, we can do that in the African diaspora, because you should be, in my opinion, personally, you should be set in stone with where you come from. Now, this is apart from being in America. I'm not saying this is not, you know, in relation to being, you know, Haitian American, Ghanaian American, Liberian American. This is saying like you are, you know, Liberian, like you, where you come from, where your history, your family traditions are from, what you practice every single day, that you should be proud of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and when you come to America, you should continue to be proud of that. And you should be, and what I was saying, what I have wrote down, I was like, inclusivity does not, you know, mean the assimilation or, you know, the assimilation or reshaping of who you are, you know, just by being inclusive. So like in the African diaspora, we can be inclusive of African Americans, we can be inclusive of Caribbean American or Afro-Caribbeans, we can be inclusive of Afro-Latinx, people who are mixed, like Veronica. You could be included and be inclusive, but you do not have to, what did I say? oh yeah, you do not have to put them at fault because of who they are. It means allowing somebody, being inclusive means you allow someone to be themselves without fault. And so I feel like in the African diaspora, we don't really allow people to flourish and be themselves without fault because they don't, you know, relate to you all the time. But like how Farmer said, you know, him and his friends, that did not stop them. But if you look at the whole diaspora, it's what's stopping us today. The lack of inclusivity and the idea that somebody else's culture is at fault in some way. I'm not saying like, oh, they did something wrong. I'm just saying you are putting a hindrance on them from growing with you as a culture, as a Black race, really, just because y'all have cultural differences. So that was my take on that. Anybody else have anything on top of that? No. Okay. What else? Where do we want to go? Do you guys know, or did you guys grow up believing any stereotypes of different diaspora cultures that we have?
I'm like, yeah, it's sad to say, but like, it's so crazy how like ingrained in us, like we are different from like African Americans. It is like, it's so common amongst like but no, I definitely, with Black Americans, I was always kind of, not like always, but like when I was, especially when I was younger, I was always just very like, I just recognize that I'm different. I'm like, oh, well, I'm Haitian, so like, I don't really have to like go through stuff. And of course, this is before, you know, I got older and I realized we're Black, you know, that's the first thing anybody's seeing. They don't care what you are. But no, I was just always like, oh, like, you know, the foods that you guys make are just so like, they're just like fatty and stuff. Or it would be like, oh, well, Black Americans are just like lazy and stuff. But then you start to look and you're like, why are those stereotypes built in? Because, you know, crack was put in communities, and because the prison industrial complex was ramped up, and all these other things that are like literally meant to keep like Black Americans from succeeding. And then we start looking into it and it's like, wait, it's not really like their fault. Especially because like even all the stories of like, you know, Black Wall Streets and stuff like that, they always get like blown up, torn down. And it's like, it's so harmful to teach, you know, people who may not be from here that you're different, because then they automatically in their head, it's like the superiority complex, like, oh, I'm different and my struggles are different, and therefore I cannot relate to you. When in all reality, our struggles are basically the same. And it's really never a situation I could think of where it'd be like, oh, because you're Caribbean or African, you're facing this discrimination specifically. So if anything, I feel like I said, we're the generation that's going to be teaching our kids that like, it's not, you know, you're not just your culture, your country, you know, you're Black first, if anything. And you're honestly, your struggle most likely is a universal struggle. So if anything, you can find solace in that and connecting to Black people instead of trying to separate and be like, we have different problems.
I have a question. So you say, you know, as we get older, we should teach our children, you know, we should be the generation to teach that. You are Black first. Should we be teaching that, or should we accept that type of ideology in America? Or whenever you go back home to Haiti, if I go back to Honduras, Veronica and Jasmine go back to Ghana, and also Japan, and Farmer, if you go back to Liberia, you know, that's a given, right? Being of the race, of a Black race. So is it just in America and maybe in Europe? Well, I guess, you know, farmers say, you know, in Europe, they don't do that. European American, they don't do that stuff. But in America, is that something that we should always be taught here? And then should people then go back home or go back
like
home?
If anything,
go ahead. Go ahead, girl.
I feel like if anything though, like it would really be more important here, just because like here it's really like I don't want to make it seem like it's like a battle or something, but like we're united against the common, you know, enemy. And and it's like they can't really you know, they can't really tell, and like that's not, I feel like that's not the time to be like, oh well, this is what I am, you know. At that point it should really be more of a universal, like, hey, we're all Black, we're all going through the same struggles right now, and this is why. And then when you go back to your primarily Black country, because you know it's already established that you are Black, so now my friend was telling me this, actually. She went to an HBC, she went to Howard, and she was telling me, like, when you're surrounded around Black people, then you really have to discover who you are. And so then that's when it's important. When you go back to your own Black community or your own Black country, then it's like, okay, well, now who am I really? But I feel like if anything, if you are out and it's more of like an integrated population and it's different people from different backgrounds, I think if anything, you should have that front, like, I am Black first, because, you know, like I said, we're all going through the same stuff. So, you know, seeming divided is only going to like give them more like ammo to be like, oh, they're already divided. So, you know, united front.
Hey, another thing is, like, I think we should teach it all across the world, because another big issue that doesn't necessarily get talked about is like colorism, especially like in Africa, because it's like there's a lot of people who bleach their skin and everything, and I think we teach everyone that they're Black first, and then also teach them like to love that, and I feel like that will, you know, get rid of that sort of hatred of being Black, you know. And then also another thing is like there's a lot of different like tribal conflicts within Africa, and like one tribe might think they're superior over another tribe just because they have lighter skin and whatnot, but at the end of the day they're both Black, you know what I mean? So I think teaching that universally would be beneficial to Black people all over the world.
Now, Veronica, oh, go ahead, Jasmine.
I was just gonna say, I definitely agree with him. Like, the issue, like, if we're talking about here, we would teach our kids, hey, you're Black regardless. It don't matter if your mom's mom comes from Africa or not, you're Black. But at home, like, and then the next step would be teaching them, hey, like, love your skin color, love yourself. But like at home or in Ghana, the first thing that people need to be taught is that it's okay to be whatever shade of brown or Black that you are, or in home and Africa, because like, I'm sorry, but this is how you know, well, should I say this? A certain group of people are just evil, because how could African countries who literally have almost 100% of Black people still have issues with the color of their skin? Like in Africa, it's a huge trend to bleach your skin. Like people bleach their skin all the time to try to make themselves look whiter or lighter, because it's bad to be dark. And like, it's even crazy. Like I remember my cousin, he actually lives in London, but we were all in Ghana, and like in my family, I'm considered lighter, which is so crazy. Like I am literally a chocolate princess. Like I'm not, I'm not light skinned. I'm not even brown skinned. Like I'm dark skinned. But in my family, I'm considered lighter. And my cousin, he's just like, oh yeah, like you got the good genes of the family. Like you're light. And I was just like, what? Like that's so crazy to even think of or hear. It's just like, in Africa, you're surrounded by a whole bunch of Black people, and in Ghana. So to think that they deal with like colorism and self-hatred over dark skin is crazy, but it's really real. So I definitely say over there, they need to work on coming to terms with the fact that their skin is beautiful. Their dark skin is so beautiful. Even here in America, like in Ghana stores, we have like Ghana corner stores and stuff. Like I'll see like the lightening creams and stuff, and it's poisonous to your skin. It's not good for you regardless. So that's really interesting to see too.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, like almost like self-hatred, a lot of it's rooted in colonialism. Like I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Rwanda genocide, or I forget what side, you know, the Hutus and Tutsis. But which one? Sorry, can someone remind me which one? Like, was it,
I don't want to speak wrong, but I know exactly what you're talking about. So I don't want to speak on the wrong tribe.
Okay. The whole like the origin of that conflict was that when I think it was the British, they came there and they colonized the place. They put one of the other tribes in charge because they had more Western-like features. Like they had like a smaller, I think it was like a smaller nose or lighter skin or something, like a Western feature. And then so then once the other tribe, like they put that tribe in power. So then once they got their independence, then that's what fueled the initial rivalry between the two and led to the genocide. So I mean that's just one example of how, you know, that sort of like glorification of Western features is, you know, the consequences of it is like brutal, especially amongst Africans.
Now, Veronica, Brianna had brought up, you know, United Strong, and we had talked about, you know, Black first, like teaching Black first. But with you, you are mixed. So my first question for you is, do you classify yourself as being a biracial? Like, do you say I am biracial? I am Ghanaian and I am Japanese, and this is who I am, and you gonna like both of it? You know what I'm saying? Like, is that who you stand in? Is that what you stand for? Like, recognition of both?
Yeah, that is how I like to identify myself. But then, like, again, my parents are like, people aren't going to see you that way when they initially like lay their eyes on you. So like, I still have to have that Black first mindset at the same time, especially in America, because that's all people see unless you clarify it. So that's also a point I was going to bring up, because it also kind of triggers that identity crisis, especially not only with multiracial people, but like also like first gen kids in America, especially because like you have that different setting at home than when you go to school, especially that's like kind of where you make your friends and like where you connect with other people. So then like when you have those two different worlds, it just kind of makes you not, it just kind of confuses you in a way. So that's why like we have to classify what kind of things we want to, I don't know how to word it, but like what kind of things we want to get out of that Black first mindset, because it can be toxic at the same time. Because you still want to keep that culture in your life, but you also don't want to throw it all away. You know, like you said, Krystal, earlier, not just mixing it all together to appease to other people.
I love that. And I love that you are walking in who you are. You know, you got the best of both worlds, girl. You got two cultures that are so beautiful, that are so diverse and different. And you are a beautiful mixture of just people coming together from two different backgrounds. Like, that is really what, in my opinion, America should have been like. You know, they say this is the land of opportunity. Well, dang, can you let my culture, you know, do what they want to do? You know what I'm saying? So I just love that for you, and that you already have that mindset, because I know a lot of people in my area, Harrisburg, but I know a lot of people in my area that it's hard for them to, you know, walk in both lights. And that's beautiful that you already understand that is so important to recognize who you are, because that is who you are. So props to you for just being true to yourself for that. That's beautiful. So my last question for you guys, because we really hit all my questions. I didn't even need to ask you. Y'all hit all my questions. My last question is, how does our generation reshape the diaspora? And that can be from, you know, the Caribbean look, from the African look, from African American to the multiracial look. Like, I want to hear it all. How do you guys see our generation reshaping the diaspora to become more inclusive without reshaping, you know, the different groups that are within that diaspora? Do you understand what I'm saying? So yeah, how do y'all think we can, you know, reshape our diaspora?
I think for one, like I said, I think at the root of the problem is really ignorance. So I think once we, you know, teach, get rid of those stereotypes that we're teaching, because, you know, at the end of the day, stereotypes, a lot of them come from your parents. So I think if we end that cycle, and then as well as, teach them that, being different doesn't mean, worse or better or whatever. I think also, like, I mean, also, like, just having like a culture where it's more accepting to everyone, and it's not sort of, that like stereotypical, prejudice that we have against other people and stuff like that. Which I think, like I said earlier, like I think it comes from like ignorance. So I feel like, once we teach them like out of that, then that'll help a lot.
I think if anything, for us to reshape it, like Farmer said, definitely just being willing to listen, being willing to not be ignorant. And I think if Black Americans show interest in wanting to understand why FOBs do the things that, like the things that they do and why they do it, and if FOBs had an interest in understanding why Black Americans do the things that they do and why they do it, I genuinely think that it really wouldn't be such an issue. But like I said, I can already see it now, just with like social media and like our generation coming up, I feel like it's like less and less boundaries and walls between us.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up social media as well. Like I've seen so much like the different cultures in the Black community and that appreciation, especially through TikTok. It personally, I take that and I like if I learn something new, I would like research that, and I think other people may do that as well. So I think that also helps with listening to the other Black cultures and types of Black people, especially in America, and just be willing to learn and understand the different experiences that people have.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that everyone said. I just think it's all about educating the next generation, more about African cultures and stuff, and also just about like Black American culture too, because it's so big and prominent where we are. I mean, like, even like being at HBCU, I've gotten the chance to learn so much and experience different things. And I really feel like just talking to the generation and not feeding into those stereotypes and all that is super important. Like, and even now I educate my friends about like my African culture and where I come from, what we do, and I'm educating myself, talking to my grandma and my mom about different stuff. So it's many different ways to kind of stop this trend. And I feel like there is a major difference. Like it's less of a divide. Like even now as a young adult, I don't really feel like my peers have a problem with me being like African and us talking about certain things. But I feel like a few years ago, there was some type of tension sometimes, but it's gone because everybody's truly learning and educating themselves.
I agree with all that you guys have said. You guys gave really good insight to how our generation can progress our race. I mean, we're all part of the Black race. Veronica, I know you were part of too, and that is just so beautiful. So yeah, I totally agree with you guys. My personal perspective on how we can progress our diaspora and solidify different cultures within the diaspora and create a better foundation is, like I said earlier, the African American culture or Black American culture is in its infancy and really forming into who it can be. I guess maybe I shouldn't say infancy, it's more like in its teenage years. We're trying different things out every day. So that's really what African American culture is doing right now, and pouring, and like you guys said, education, but also experience. I would like to say that education, experience, and communication. And that is coming from, in my opinion, should be, coming from, maybe African countries, giving, not really giving, but having some type of dialogue or communication or connection with African American, maybe businesses. Let's start with economics, how we can build up economics from, continent to continent. Afro-Caribbean, Haiti, the first Black republic. How can you build up economics over there? And pour into everything that they've done, trying to be the first Black republic and succeeding, but now having economic hardship at times. How can you pour into
We
progressing?
forever blame the U.S. and the French for that.
That's very true. Yeah,
but that's a whole other conversation.
Yes, ma'am, because they sure did cut off trade with doing. Yes, they did. So pouring into these different countries economically, financially, and then also creating relationships in that way. You create relationships wherever you go, doing whatever you do. Even in going to Japan, shoot, I mean, there's Black people over there, there's Black people everywhere, Black races everywhere. So pouring into in different ways that you can. For me, and I say economics a lot because that's what I'm going to school to study, economics. How can I, maybe purchase land over here in Ghana? My godmother is from Ghana. She's over in Accra right now. So, but yeah, purchasing land over there. How can I get in contact with her? I got people in Sierra Leone too, people in Honduras. How can I get land over there and create, or, just having opportunities to then merge, an American business overseas with my people everywhere. That's just one outlook. And it could be artistic if you're into arts and stuff like that. It could be, I don't know, if you're into medicine and stuff. I'm horrible at science, but if y'all into medicine and doing things like that, that's, like Bree, she going into pharmaceuticals. That's one way. That's just an idea that I have. And that's something that I would love to see in my lifetime, bridging the gap of the diaspora, continent to continent, island to island, just like that. So yeah. I really appreciate you guys for talking with me today. I love having talks like this. Bree, Jasmine, y'all know I love whenever I do Gen Zero. I love this. I thank y'all so much for being on the chat box today. You guys have anything else you would like to say?
No, I think I'm good. I just wanted to add that I'm actually majoring in economics, and that's all about allocating resources, and it falls in line with community impact. So yeah.
I did not know that. Girl, we're gonna have to talk after this.
We should.
Yes. Farmer, Veronica, Bree, y'all have anything else to add today?
I just had
wait, I have one question though. Is this something you're gonna be doing like these meetings? Is it gonna be like, are you gonna do this again?
Yeah, so I have monthly podcasts. Yeah, these are monthly podcast episodes.
Okay. All right.
Veronica, you got anything to say, girl?
I just had a fun fact I wanted to share when you were talking about economics and buying land in Ghana. Like, a lot of Black celebrities are actually buying land in Ghana and selling it. Like Cardi B, she has like a whole mansion in Ghana right now. So that's what I thought it was cool, and that you mentioned it, and that kind of relates to Black Americans reaching out to their roots and trying to find their culture.
Exactly. It's a back and forth. It's something that you have to be proactive in. For me, like I said, I want my life to be not surrounded by, economics, or buying land and stuff like that. I'm not, into money like that, kind of. But anyway, I really, want to, like I said, bridge the gap. And in my eyesight today, the best way to do that is land, because that's honestly what the Europeans did, but we're not gonna talk about that. But yeah, land and having creating opportunity in a community, and where your community is where you live. So, and you live on land, so that's the trickle down effect for that. So yes, girl, go ahead, Bree.
I just wanted to thank you once again for having me on here. I really appreciate it, and I definitely like the other aspects and perspectives that were talked about today. Because I feel like I didn't even consider, a lot of things, like you said about the infancy of the African American culture and stuff like that. So definitely a lot to think about.
Well, I'm glad I was able to bring this all together. I will totally let you guys know when this goes up. I'm also going to do a questionnaire on my Instagram as well as on Gen Zero's Instagram to get a few more people to bring their ideas in. It's just a regular questionnaire, and you guys can send that out to your friends as well. But I really do appreciate you guys for joining me on this talk, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you.
You too.
You too. Bye.
Bye.